Join us for a special edition of Connect by Let's Buy Black 365 around the Newark as a model city Marshall Plan. Hear the call to action keynote by activist and actor Danny Glover. Remarks on Dr. King's economic empowerment legacy by Nataki Kambon. And see special interviews with Newark Mayor the Honorable Ras Baraka, son of ancestor and activist Amiri Baraka. Special interviews with Dr. Ron Daniels, the president of the Institute of the Black World, and more.
Hi everybody, welcome back to this special edition of Connect by Let's Buy Black 365. Today we are broadcasting from Newark, New Jersey. This is a historic occasion. Today, April 3rd, marks the 50th year anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's mountaintop speech. In January of this year, we asked you to celebrate Dr. King's birthday and legacy differently by living his message of Black economic empowerment. For those of you who participated in the State of the Black World Conference in 2016 and continue to work with the Let's Buy Black 365 movement on practical, actual changes in our everyday lives or to our everyday lives, this is kind of the culmination of all of those efforts in a single event that will have continued efforts in our local cities around the country. What is happening here today is that the Institute of the Black World is following up on its promise and commitment after the State of the Black World Conference 2016 on delivering the actual implementation of plans that actually create change in our everyday lives in the Black community. So activists, leaders, entrepreneurs, persons who are urban planners and economic developers are getting together to take steps towards the practical implementation of economic empowerment changes in this summit. We welcome you to watch the rest of the videos. Stay tuned. We encourage members of Let's Buy Black 365. Your membership actually pays for some of the facilitation for this to happen and for the changes that we want to see in the world. So we thank you for your support. We thank you for your ideas and your engagement. And this is what Black economic empowerment truly looks like. So stay tuned for more, and we'll see you soon.
You've been craving a change in Black media, and Let's Buy Black's Positive Black Media Project is bringing it to you every Monday night. Get your fix with the all-new breakout show that features the best in Black music, culture, education, business, fitness, technology, entertainment, and lifestyle. Get ready to meet your new favorite host, along with brilliant entrepreneurs, powerful activists, chefs. Watch a segment featuring your favorite positive Black media producers, youth initiatives, community organizations, elders, business leaders, world leaders, hot entertainers, and more. Tune in Mondays at 8 p.m. to connect.
Let's Buy Black 360.
Let's Buy Black 360. Let's Buy Black 365.
It's everything. We're blacking it out.
Get plugged in and tune in to letsbuyblack365.com/connecttv.
It's that time, y'all. Get on your feet and put your hands together.
Connect.
Hey, you still watching us on YouTube? Nah, man. Go to Let's Buy Black 365 to get special features, bonus footage, and outtakes. Check us out now. Let's Buy Black 365 to give more.
Right. There we go. That should do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to the show, everyone. We'll try this again now that we can hear each other. So, I am your host, Nataki.
And I'm Tyler.
All right. Welcome to the show, everybody. We've got an exciting show. We've got a power pack show. Our show is normally an hour, but today we're going to do a little extended episode. So if you can stay with us, we've actually got about 2 hours of programming tonight. So we'll do a little sign off at the 1 hour mark, but we've definitely got some special appearances by some power players in the Black community. So you got to stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it's an awesome show, and it's always good when we come together to actually effectuate something that really impacts community.
Right, right. And that's what was happening in Newark, New Jersey last week. You know, we all know it was the 50-year anniversary of the martyrdom of Dr. Martin Luther King. But more importantly, it was the 50-year anniversary of the mountaintop speech that he gave.
That's right. And the impact on it. And just talking, it's a call to action for economic empowerment. You know?
Right. And so many of you responded in January where we asked you to celebrate Dr. King's birthday differently. So it was really great to participate in an event that marks how we can celebrate it differently, not just on an individual level, but in a way that actually involves taking control of our cities, our resources, land and businesses and other things.
Right. So we're getting out of the fantasy world of the movies.
Right.
And getting into reality.
Right, right. How do we actually create it? And how do we, you know, not just become passive observers and really get in the game? And there's some people who the Institute of the Black World and the city of Newark via Mayor Ras Baraka, who are doing some amazing things. So yeah. But before that, we've got a special guest.
That's right. That's right. We had the opportunity to sit down with the young brother who was actually making history in Pennsylvania, being elected as the youngest judge at 27 years old.
Right.
So we had a chance to go up to Harrisburg, PA, and talk to him. So check it out.
Okay.
Welcome to another edition of Let's Buy Black 365. I'm your host, Tyler, and we have a very special guest today, family. This brother here is the youngest judge appointed in Pennsylvania, doing some amazing work in the community, and we're so happy to be here. Judge Hanif Johnson. Welcome, brother.
Thank you for having me.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
So talk to the people. Tell them, why be a judge?
Oh man, why not? I think it's a big position. It's a powerful position, and I determine a lot of things. And you know, just being a young black man at the age of 27, and you know, younger kids seeing that, it's like, you know, something that can be attained without having to, you know, be, you know, older, you know, and or even white in a sense, you know, not to make it a race thing, but it's just, you know, the facts. You don't see a lot of black men in this position, sort of like a black teacher type of thing.
Exactly. So 27 years old.
Yeah.
So you've experienced a lot, you know, growing up, and you've seen a lot. What are some things, whether it be like the best advice you received growing up, or something that just sticks out to you that has really impacted your life now?
I think when I see a grown man in his 30s or 40s, and he has to work at McDonald's, try to provide for his family, and then he gets frustrated because he can't, so then he starts to sell drugs, and he starts to, you know, go back to the street life, and then it's all tied back to the decision that he made when he was an 18-year-old kid. So for me to have to be able to see something like that and say, wow, this one mistake could change your life for the rest of your life, a couple seconds, one small mistake, and then you can be so young and it follow you for so long for the rest of your life. So it's like you have to live a certain way and stay away from certain things that could possibly lead you down a, you know, a particular road that you might not appreciate further down. Because it's like you have to think about, do I want to have children? How do I want to be able for them to live? How do I want to live my life? What are some of the experiences that I want to experience? So I think once, you know, when I took a step back and I just looked at older people and I listened, it's like that saying, when you hear more than one person say something, it has to be true. And it's like when you don't know, when these two individuals don't know each other, and you know, you hear, man, I wish I would have did this when I was younger. Right. Or you hear the older person say, listen, stay in school, do this, do that. And it's like, when you keep hearing something, it's like, it has to have some truth to it. It has to. So everybody's saying this for a reason. These are people that made mistakes, and they know that they made the mistakes, and they're trying to prevent you. So it's like, when they say older people have the wisdom, you have to get the wisdom from them, because they know they've been on this earth longer. So they have, you know, they know more.
Yeah. Sitting at the feet of the elders and really trying to get, because it helps you tremendously going forward. You don't have to waste time doing stuff that they'll tell you, oh, well, you know, you don't have to worry about that because, you know, this is what I did, and these are mistakes I made, and you don't need to make them. Yeah.
So in a sense, they said, listen, I made this mistake for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, you actually, in your campaign, you beat out some people who had some nice resumes. Like, I think one of them, well, two of them were city council people.
Yep, former. And then one was former, and then the other one, she was currently sitting on the city council at the time of the election.
A 27-year-old beating out people that was sitting on the council for this position.
Yeah.
How do you, when you reflect on that, like, how do you feel about that?
Man, listen, look, I'm getting chilled when I was talking about it. Like, when I thought about it, it was either, you know, me having a daughter and a son on the way, and me, you know, living with my mom. So it was like, I need to buy this house. So, and I was everything was preparing for me to, you know, buy this house, and I was waiting to purchase it. So it's like, do I buy this house, or do I throw everything away in a sense and run for an election with a child on the way and a daughter, or do I just play it safe and keep my job for the state? So it's like, I just was like, you know what, I got 3 opponents, it's me, and I believe in myself, I can do this, and I'm going to do it. So that Friday, I told my job I might quit Monday, and I went on Monday, so gave them my resignation letter, said I quit, I don't work here anymore. I'm running for judge. A lot of people laughed. They said I was crazy, and then even when I went back and visited, I think they said the executive director was like, I was crazy for quitting my job. And then like one of the supervisors, she said, you know, I need one. Yeah, and they said, yeah, I guess he's not so crazy now, is he? So it's like, yeah.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah.
Did you find that was the majority of the community's reaction to you running? Just being that, oh, you know, laughing or not taking you seriously, your candidacy seriously?
Yeah, and I think it sort of came from the older generation. But I think once they seen how serious I was, and you know what I had to offer, and the things that I actually done to the community so far, you know, I think that they were like, oh wow, this is a stand-up guy. You know, he's coming from the heart. These are things that he like actually believes in, and he's, you know, and I think once we got to that point, they actually knew who I was, and they got a feel for me. It was like, oh wow, I think this will be a great guy to be a judge. This would be a huge impact on our city. This is something that our city needs, and I thank the older generation for giving me the opportunity, because those are like the main people that vote.
Yeah.
You know, I think out of like 1,500, only 150 people were between the ages of like, you know, 18 and 36. Yeah. And the rest of them was like 40 to 90. We had a lady that she's like 95, and she voted for me. Yeah. Every time I knock on her, you go to church, baby? I loved going to her. I made sure I could stop by her house all the time. And she was driving and everything, 95 years old.
Yeah, and it just showed.
Aluna kande so diala. Aluna kande foli aluna kande dugu diala.
Aluna kande so diala. Aluna kande foli aluna kande so diala.
Aluna kande so diala. Aluna kande jembe fola luna kande dugudiala.
Aluna kande sodiala. Aluna kande fani la luna kande sodiala.
Yeah, aluna kande sodiala. Aluna kande foli la luna kambara dugudiambolo.
Aluna kande sodiala. Aluna kande foli la luna kande sodiala.
Aluna kande sodiala. Aluna kande sewa de luna kande dugudiala.
Aluna kande sodiala. Aluna kande foli la luna kande sodiala.
From antiquity to the present, our people need to develop a new paradigm. It's time for an awakening with your host, Brother Elliot. Sundays, 7 p.m., Fridays at 8 p.m. For podcasting or live program scheduling, hit us up at timeforanawakening@gmail.com.
All right.
All right.
It's been good so far.
Yeah, he is really impressive. 27 years old. And it's interesting to see him a little bit just kind of relaxed because, you know, he in some ways he doesn't quite strike you as a judge, but you were saying a little bit just like his demeanor with his staff and everything is like
he's very like professional when it comes to about the law in his business. He handles it, you know, so you see the aspect of, you know, just that professionalism and him taking the position seriously, and the fact that he comes from the community, and that is like a passion of his.
Right.
So to have somebody that is from the community who looks like you in a position like that, you know, it gets you the inspiration as well as understanding that, okay, well, that's an aspect of the area of law or, you know, whatever have you, that we can influence.
Exactly. Because I think what's most significant is that because the Black community and Black individuals chose to get involved in their local government through the electoral process and the voting process, they now have influence so that cases that may not have otherwise been judged fairly are now being judged fairly by someone who looks like them. And, you know, a lot of people don't talk about it, but I just want to point out that there was a really good documentary that came out in the 80s that looked at how the Klan, the KKK, felt like it wasn't being as effective as possible because I guess demonstrating in sheets and burning crosses is gonna, you know, it's gonna take a long time to get the progress you want. So they changed that and they started grooming young people to go into the police department, to become judges, to become doctors, and all of these things so they can actually have change. And then they voted in blocks. And they're, you know, I think the Klan gets labeled too much as the symbol of racism in this country, but there are a lot of groups that do that to make sure that their interests are what govern. And so, you know, it's really exciting when we, you know, rally around our politicians and get involved in the electoral process so that, you know, if we are jammed up by a racist system, we at least have people who look like us who are on the other side of it balancing it out.
Absolutely. And that's important too. Like, as much as you may have any type of opinion about it, like when you go before a judge, you know, best believe you want someone who actually comes from your background and that
and cares about your community.
Absolutely, because you will see a difference with regards to it.
Okay. Well, we've got more with Judge Hanif Johnson, so stay tuned. It's a really fascinating interview.
Oh yeah, check it out.
All right.
Who's there? Like, they're willing to come out to support you, support someone who actually does stand up for the community.
Yeah.
Wow. How is your family taking this?
Oh man, my mom told me I was crazy. My dad said, y'all better not quit that job. And then after I decided to run and I quit, my mom was like right there. She was my treasurer. She was stressed out. She was she gets sick easy too. She was out there in the cold trying to pass out literature. I had to stop. I'm like, Mom, stop. And then on election day, my mom and my dad actually, they worked the polls for me. And then, you know, it was freezing out there. My dad nose was running, you know, and my little brother was out there with me in the freezing cold. It was straight family on election day, because, you know, in the primary they got paid and everybody want to volunteer, but then, like, you know, in the general election it was just family. And my family, you know, had my back, and it was like close family. My mom, dad, my cousin Gina, my little brother, and it was just like, you know, it was just like close people that just had my back, that was there. And then, like, you know, my kids, grandma on her mom's side, she was out there too. So it was just like feeding everybody for me and everything. So it was just like, you know, you actually learn who's for you and who's really going to support you, because a lot of people say they do certain stuff, but then it's like, where are you at? It's like almost like starting a business when you know you need help. Nobody want to help, but then it's like when it's all the way off the ground, it's like, hey, it's like, no.
How do you guard against people who may, or how do you decipher between those that are really for you and then those that just want to come along for the ride?
I think it's just pretty much just me being able to just judge character in general, and just, you know, being able to just, you know, be me. So it's just like, you know, you, I'm me, and then whatever we had before, it's like something that continues. If we didn't, then it can build or grow. You know, you can always feel, you know, people's intentions in a sense. So.
Do you have you received any type of emails, messages, or letters from like the younger generation, or some people who?
Yes, I love it. I love it. I mean, I've been getting messages from all across the U.S. say, yo, man, congratulations, you did a big thing. You give me inspiration. You got any advice for me? And I just love it. And I respond to all of them too. So, you know, it's great. It's a wonderful feeling. I've got, you know, letters from lawyers from like Massachusetts, and, you know, the senators are sending me stuff. So it's just like, you know, people are taking recognition, and I appreciate them reaching out. Just like you have a lot of people that, you know, they like, you know, that I've, you know, took the step forward, you know, to run for a political position, and I actually, like, you know, attained a position. So it's like a lot of people have, you know, reached out, and I reach right back out and tell them, like, you know, I really appreciate it. And it's like, yeah.
You understand this, at your position, you know, being able to see a condition that's in our community and then doing something proactively to change it, and then having young people look up to what you're doing, even people that are your contemporaries, your same age. It's like a really, you know how like when Barack Obama was elected, and just that image of a black man in the White House, you know, it's just, and the image of the family was so powerful and changed so many trajectories of the youth who didn't think that they could do anything else. But now they see somebody in office like that, I'm like, I can do that. You know, the same with your position now.
Then he wasn't born either. Barack Obama, he swagged out a little bit and everything. Like, he was a smooth dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
No doubt. Okay. So, what would you say is, or what tip would you give someone young who may feel at that point of like your childhood, where you may not know exactly where to go, or you may be slightly misguided in some ways? Like, what would you advise them to do?
Find what you're good at. If you don't know, take your time and figure it out. Because you have, you know, 24 hours in a day. Out of those 24 hours, you can take an hour and research things that you may like, or, you know, you might find yourself watching certain shows on TV. That might be your niche. Or you might, you know, find that you're, you know, attracted to doing certain things. And then once you figure it out, it's like you have to do something every day that's leading you to, you know, attaining that, or being better at what you want to be. And I think once you figure out where you want to be, it's like it takes time sometimes, and you don't actually know until you're like, you know, might find yourself working in certain fields, and then you're like, oh wow, I like this. This is me. So then now you become, you know, the best you that you can be. And you just don't let anyone stop you. Don't let anyone tell you can't do anything, because people are going to project their fears onto you. And every dream always, everything, any dream that comes true, it always sounds far-fetched sometimes. It always sounds like it can't happen. If I would have told somebody I want to be the judge at the age of 13, they probably would have double laughed at me, because I already got laughed at when I was campaigning, but they'd have laughed at me 2 times. But you have to find what you're good at, and you have to work towards it every day. Immerse yourself in it. Become insane about it. My mission in life, I think, is to see. I honestly think that I want to take that little black boy that comes from a single parent home, that grew up in the projects, mom, dad, uncle, sister, brother, everybody's on drugs, everybody in this family is in and out of jail, and I want him to see that, you know, I want them to be able to see, like, this is what I can become if I want to. I cannot make excuses for myself. I don't have to follow the lead of this people, of my, I'm a product of my environment. No. Become better than your environment, you know. And I think my mission is to just lift as many people up as I'm climbing through life as I can. And I think, you know, if I do that, or if I change that one person's life, like, that's my goal, like, change lives. Change lives. I think that's my mission in life, help people, and live, you know, don't live selfishly in life. So, you know.
This is Black Excellence. This is Black Power. Judge Hanif Johnson, thank you so much for coming on and blessing us, brother.
Oh man, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. This is Talib with Let's Buy Black 365. Catch us next time.
Imagine everything you could do while New Business Solutions starts, helps, or scales your company. You can work a full-time job, travel the world, plan for the future, spend time with loved ones, help your community, take time for yourself, get back to basics, and breathe a sigh of relief. When will you be ready to finally get to where you want to be? Don't just imagine the possibilities, get ready to live them. Call 301-244-9072. Again, that's 301-244-9072. Or visit newbusinesssolutions.com to book your free consultation.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about his interview is the fact that I think 73% he won by. And the people that he was against were city council people,
right,
and then businessmen or businessmen with like deep pockets. A 27-year-old that had no prior legal background,
right,
but really just had the ambition and had the drive,
the passion for community,
passion, you know, and life experiences as he articulated in there.
And I think it's such, you know, it's such a great story because I think, and we'll talk about this a little later with Mayor Ras Baraka, I think so many people are disenchanted with the political system, right, and, you know, just to see some of these cases where here's what it could be is just really phenomenal. So we've still got a really great show for you. So again, tonight is a special edition. It'll be about 2 hours. We'll do a little miniature sign off at the 1 hour mark. But without further delay, we're going to transition a little bit to what was going on in Newark, New Jersey last week.
I see it. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, you know, Newark as a model city is, you know, we talked about it being a follow-up to the economics work session and plenary that happened at the State of the Black World.
That's
so
right, yeah.
We were all up in Newark in 2016.
My first time in Newark too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So to come back 2 years later, and there were so many people who were frustrated. I know there was a friend of yours who was like, "It's just gonna be a conference. They ain't gonna be no follow-up."
Right.
And, you know, to actually have a group of committed individuals who put together a work plan for this amount of time, and to have the Institute of the Black World really work independently and with all these people to ensure that there is a model that can be created through this Marshall Plan is going to be incredible for the lives of individuals living, Black people living in Newark.
And it gives people hope in the sense of, because you do get disenchanted with the fact of the political process and so many things that have been, you know, promised and then been let down and stuff like that.
Right.
But then when you see people in powerful positions like Mayor Ras Baraka come into play and say, no, we want to develop this economic system to where we can have these model cities and things of that nature, it gives people like that hope.
Yeah, and you know, even beyond him saying he wanted to, because, you know, when he first started, he talked about what he wanted to do, and there was some skepticism. There's still skepticism, but to see what he has actually done, and to see his staff, who are all, you know, super sharp, the people who came together threw some tough questions. I know I threw some tough questions about, you know, frankly, Black liberation and how this is really going to work on a fundamental level. And I was pleasantly surprised by the answers that, you know, on one hand, they have thought through some of these things, and on the other hand, they're reaching out to people who are activists, city planners, and all these people, because they're saying, we don't have all the answers, but we want influencers in the Black community who are dedicated to be a part of the solution, and we want citizens to be a part of the solution, which is why there was a town hall meeting. So super exciting.
Yeah, and it's like everybody who has interest in the community has a stake and a say at the table.
Right.
And that's important.
Right. So, you know, I think it's really interesting for those who really want to see the changes. There were so many, there were hundreds of people, I think, I don't know, I guess like 700-800 people at the town hall meeting who said, we want to see more of the changes that have happened in Newark. You know, this is their opportunity to vote their desire and vote the city they want to see, and not just vote the city they want to see, but actually get involved in making sure that the mayor and the deputy mayor's office and his whole staff have the support to carry it forward, because they are coming under attack. Yeah,
and that's in getting the people to be lobbyists, or just continue to have the pressure on those that are in power in those positions to know, like, we still out here, we still want this agenda passed. What assistance do you need from us in the community?
Because they can't do it alone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's hear from Mayor Baraka, and we're also we were fortunate enough to interview Dr. Ron Daniels from the Institute of the Black World, and then we've got, of course, the keynote speech from Danny Glover, and just, you know, a lot in this episode. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Peace and love, family. Get This Wisdom magazine is the hottest new publication that focuses on empowering our African community. It delivers inspiring interviews, relevant articles, cultural news, spiritual tips, health and wellness, children's activities, and more. Y'all gotta read this, family. Go to www.getthiswisdommagazine.com now. I mean, right now. Hey,
so many young people are disenchanted with local government and feel like it's not for them. Can you talk just for a second about why they can get excited now, because there are people who are actually working for them, and there are actually plans coming together, and how things like the Marshall Plan are actually changing their everyday lives?
Well, even if it wasn't, I think that young people should be involved in it, because it's their duty to change what's going on. Support, being involved in elected politics or government is not simply your approval of what's happening. It's also your imagination about what you think should happen. And so you should be involved and engaged, you know, simply because you want to see the world shaped in the vision that you imagine in your own head.
Right.
So, I mean, but there are electeds around the country, whether you talk about my buddy Mayor Mulben Jackson, or Mayor Tubbs in you know, Stockton in California. There are folks that are coming up with very creative ways to, ingenious ways to kind of stabilize or as I say, keep people alive long enough to change what's going on in our country. And they're doing this in kind of out of the box ways. And the Marshall Plan is something that I think people are beginning to talk about, at least in the academic and elected circles, about how to get the government to take responsibility for the fact that there's been purposeful and deliberate systemic undermining of our community for centuries.
Right.
And people of color in this community and poor people in this community, in this country, that the government has to focus, like that they've done that a few times around poor whites and middle class whites and bring them into middle class. And, whether it's housing or jobs through the WPA, all those other kind of things, we're saying that that kind of effort, those kind of resources, that kind of dollar needs to be pushed in communities of color around the country. And there people are beginning to talk about that. And we need young people on the ground to think about it, to imagine it, to help us create it, and to push that we make it happen, right?
Okay. So I would just say, what is for the individual who has been disconnected or disenchanted, what is the one thing that we can do right now to begin to be a part of the change that we want to see in our local as well as national community?
Kwame Ture used to say, you got to be organized.
Organize.
You got to be a part of an organization. If there's no organization, you have to make one. You have to be a part of an organization. You have to engage in a kind of all-encompassing kind of politics. You can't isolate yourself and just be narrow in terms of your view and what you're going to engage yourself in. You have to engage in all of those things that you're doing. Heck, go to a few PTA meetings if you can't find something to be involved in. But that's important for us all. And then we got to, like I said in there, we have to come up with some offensive strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that concept. We can't just play defense, and we can't just put ourselves in positions where even if we're giving offensive opportunities, we're putting ourselves back in defensive defensive situations.
Absolutely.
So powerful. Well, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today. I'm Nataki with the Let's Buy Black 365 movement, Connect TV. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much. We'll see you tonight.
Keep up the great work.
What if we didn't let mainstream media pretend hundreds of black leaders don't exist as their way to prevent us from realizing our collective struggle and our strength? Picture it. If we really knew, what would real black unity look like? Visualize it. What if the black world could put aside our differences and come together to not just talk, but to truly create solutions to injustice, oppression, poverty, unemployment, police brutality, environmental racism, voter suppression, and more? How could that change your life and the lives of those you love?
Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Nataki with the Let's Buy Black 365 movement here on Connect TV. So excited to be here with Dr. Ron Daniels from the Institute of the Black World. We're here in Newark, New Jersey, and this is so exciting. Can you talk a little bit about, in 2016, you all put out a call to action and said something was going to happen, and we're here again in 2018. Talk a little bit about what's happening here today.
Well, it wasn't just you all. You were a part of it. You were part of the call, and as you were advocating for this conference, you kept saying that there are many people who are saying, well, but we always do conferences, nothing ever really happens.
Right.
And first of all, let me commend you, because you have continued to interface with the Economic Working Group and moving some stuff forward. From the point of view of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, we knew we could not do everything. So we've done some work around reparations and a number of other issues, but we also wanted to do Newark as a model city. Yes. Because we came here because of the Honorable Ras Baraka, the economic programs he's putting forth. And so we want to talk about a Marshall Plan, because he has called for one. We also wanted to talk about how could we get people like Sister Nataki and Let's Buy Black 365 and New Business Solutions and a number of other people who might just provide technical assistance and invest to make Newark a model city in terms of black people and brown people and everybody, but with us at the center. So we're delivering on that commitment, and it's happening, and it's a beautiful exchange of ideas among some of the brightest and best minds from all over the country. And we have to thank Let's Buy Black 365 for being an integral part of it.
Yes, and you know what's so exciting about this for me is, you know, as Newark, with Newark as a model city, there's so much talk about what's needed, and you know, food, housing, shelter, jobs, all these things. And regardless of where you live in the country, this is now an opportunity to have, you know, one city rise up as a model that can be duplicated right in your community, right in your backyard.
Right.
And you know, we always hear about, you know, what are black leaders doing, but you've actually, through IBW and your entire team, put forth a plan where you're bringing these people together to actually take the action.
Right, and it can be replicated. So there's this amazing synergy, and this is what I love, the synergy between the different groups and organizations. And you're a part of the Power Networking Conference in FraserNet. We have leading people from there, here. Center for Community Change is here. The PICO Network for Urban Strategies is here. And just an amazing group of people. And that's what I enjoy, is that collaboration, that interchange of ideas, because we are each other's best teachers.
Exactly.
And so the actions that we'll take from here, this is an interim step to pull us all together, and then we're going to be acting on the Marshall Plan concept, and acting because there is a potential that some people will actually provide technical assistance here in Newark, as well as invest. And you're right, it can potentially be replicated in different communities around the country.
So I know you're super busy. Before we let you go, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening tonight? Because you've got some amazing power players tonight. Yes.
Including you. You're one of those power players. We're having a national town hall meeting. It's built around Dr. Martin Luther King's 50th anniversary of his mountaintop speech.
Which is today.
That's
is
right.
The 50th anniversary.
And we'll be talking about his journey for economic justice, but we'll largely be, this symposium is a private event. This will be a public opportunity for the brothers and sisters from Newark to see this amazing group of people who have come to support them. So from a kind of political, cultural, psychological piece, is to give them a sense of this is good. And people believe in us, and we can work collaboratively to empower ourselves.
Okay, so who's on the program for tonight? Some of the people.
Well, we have Willie Barney, who's you know, with the African American Empowerment course. We have Michael Roberts with the Roberts Companies. You'll be on the program as well. We also have Randall Pinkett, who's part of the Power Networking Conference, who will be a part of the conversation. Danny Glover.
Danny Glover,
Danny Glover, that's right. And Danny Glover will be the keynote speaker for the evening. But he's the icing on the cake, because we got really the cake is all these amazing people that'll be a part of it.
Yes. So thank you so much. This is so exciting. It's so exciting to be here, and we also want to thank the members of Let's Buy Black 365 who've continued to participate in this economics dialogue and take action around that. So we're going to let you go. We know you're super busy, but I am Nataki here with Let's Buy Black 365 Connect TV, and we'll see you next time. Tonight's town hall meeting is all about what practical changes you're going to begin to see in your cities, but first starting with Newark, New Jersey as a model city.
Now, we selected that song because, as you remember, you may recall, Dr. King ended his mountaintop speech with a reference to the Battle Hymn of the Republic. So that was an intentional. And now we have two presenters who are going to bring succinct remarks on King's journey for economic justice and its relevance to Black America today. Nataki Kambon is co-founder of Let's Buy Black 365, senior consultant of New Business Solutions from Washington, D.C. She is a dynamic sister. Nataki Kambon, give it up for her.
All right, in the tradition of our great African ancestors, I'd like to ask permission from an elder to speak.
You have permission.
Madasi and Asante Sana, and thank you, depending on from where you are. Again, my name is Nataki Kambon, and although I was raised in North Carolina, I was actually born right up the road, so it's nice to be kind of home. I'm honored to be here tonight. I know we have a short period of time, so I had this whole presentation presented, and Dr. Daniels said, you gotta abbreviate. But I'm honored honored to be here as we commemorate the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And as the co-founder and national spokesperson of the Let's Buy Black 365 movement, definitely want to welcome all of you from Ghana, West Africa. I want to say Akwaba. I bring to you greetings from the organizers, the activists, the business owners, the students, and all of the members of the Let's Buy Black 365 movement who are in spirit with you today, because this is the culmination of several years of work to create the Black economic empowerment that we are always talking about. In November 2016, I had the honor of convening and facilitating, the economics plenary for the State of the Black World 4. And what was most striking to me about that is that it wasn't just a conference. The Institute of the Black World and Dr. Daniels was very clear on the directive that we cannot just have a conference and leave and go home with a good feeling. We needed to take that call to action and organize around it and create real, sustainable change in the Black community. And so over the last few years, there has been a strong contingent of individuals who participated in that, who have worked on a plan to do just that. One thing I did want to note and remark is that in January, we did a call to action where we asked people to not just celebrate Dr. King's birthday by marching and going to events, but we asked people to live Dr. King's legacy through living his mountaintop speech message of economic empowerment and living the message to economically withdraw from entities that do not support our communities and to redirect our dollars not just to Black-owned businesses in terms of Black faces, but the committed Black-owned businesses that are interested in reinvesting in building community. And although that message was echoed 50 years ago when we put that call to action out, I would remark that one of the things that strikes me most is not what happened in January, but what happened in the Black community and Black world in February. Because surprisingly enough, in the middle of February, there was a phenomenon that happened. And that phenomenon was that a film was released and millions and millions of Black people took millions and millions of dollars and took them to a movie theater to watch a film about a fictitious Black nation that had fictitious wealth, resources, and superhero-like powers to do amazing things for their people. And what is most striking about that is not that we took money that we could aggregate for Black liberation or aggregate against a system of racism and white supremacy, but what strikes me most is that we are so desperately starved to see our people rise, that we will do it even if it means seeing it on a film screen produced by people who don't even like us. So what excites me about being here today is that in the convening of the symposium that took place earlier, in the convening of the town hall that's taking place right now, the history that you are a part of here is the Institute of the Black World. Dr. Daniels has assembled a group of Black experts, Black leaders, community builders, city planners, mayors, and activists who are all ready to put our best and our brightest together so that we don't have to think about fictitious cities. We actually can create real model cities with Black people and Black resources. And I think that's something we need to get excited about. So in close, before I go, I just want to share that one of the things that I'm excited to share that the Let's Buy Black 365 movement is bringing to this conversation earlier this year, we came up with a plan for how we were going to join both the business community and our local communities. And we launched an initiative where we put forward $1 million of resources to help Black-owned businesses grow from the mom and pop, small business level to the enterprise level to create legacy businesses. Yeah, we need to clap for that. Because one thing that we know and that we recognize is when we have legacy businesses, those businesses have the ability to change everything in our daily lives. They have the ability to influence policy. They have the ability to create jobs and allow people to own housing and allow people to have some reprieve from a system that may not be, or that is not for them, and create a system that is for them from within. So with that, I'm excited that the Let's Buy Black 365 movement is a part of this conversation about a model city and how we can bring businesses that are not, again, not just Black owned, but committed Black owned businesses by those who have the consciousness about what communities look like when they're created with an intergenerational ideology in mind and created with the knowledge and understanding that as we grow wealth, we also need to help our communities mend the psychological trauma that has happened from hundreds of years of racism and white supremacy. We also need to build on models of intergenerational sustainability. And with that, I see Dr. Daniels standing here. So with that, I just want to leave you, I want everybody to chant with me. We have a mantra that we say at Let's Buy Black because we forget that we each as individuals have so much power to create the change that we want. So say this with me. I am the resource my people need.
I am the resource my people need.
I am the solution.
I am the solution.
I am the Let's Buy Black 365 Black Economic Empowerment Movement. I am the Let's Buy Black 365 Black Economic Empowerment Movement. Thank you, Madasi.
So I'll do what I usually do.
Thank you.
We were just talking about how we need to get folks to tune in, you know.
Yeah, it's you know, there's so much going on. It's so exciting. So yeah, that was just, it was an incredible night. And that night we heard from billionaire philanthropist Michael Roberts, who, you know, many people talk about, well, what are wealthy Black people doing to give back? And he's just one example of those who are actively participating. You know, he talked about how he's created thousands of jobs. And he made one comment that everybody kept quoting for the rest of the week. He talked about, he said, what is it? Rich people yell while wealthy people whisper. And you know, it's you know, and it's really not about the money. It's really about, and because I hear some people say, well, you know, I'm not really trying to get rich or get money or get any of that. You know, I'm really trying to live a minimalist lifestyle. And I can appreciate that from the standpoint of not being capitalistic. I'm very much not into living just a consumer lifestyle. Right. On the other hand, when you look at what you can do from the standpoint of being a job creator, what you can do from the standpoint of being able to support candidates who have your best interest at heart. Exactly. When you look at what you can do just from an influence standpoint and all of these things, having the resources to do that puts you in a completely different mindset. So, you know, we definitely appreciate, you know, members like him, Randall Pinkett, who many of us know from he was the only Black person to win the practice I mean the Apprentice, excuse me, with the current president, and you know, he railed against him politically, but you know, he is out, you know, advocating in community, and you know, there's so many others. Willie Barney is out in the middle of Omaha, and you know, they joke like, did anybody know anybody black people live in Omaha? But they have actually created their own Marshall Plan and have created the businesses, and they talk about how even though they had a plan, even though they were totally committed to helping community, and they had, you know, people who had, you know, lifelong dedication to helping the black community, they had so many skeptical black people that they were getting pushback from that side, and then white people and other people definitely didn't want them to succeed, so they were getting pushback on that side. So it took them, you know, 10 to 12 years to really get it going, and they said there's still a work in progress, but they have created infrastructure. They have conscious or like-minded people on the city council and throughout local government, and they've created this entire empowerment zone within Omaha, Nebraska. So really? You know, what's most exciting about this show is that we keep getting, you know, U.S. propaganda saying that this is not happening, it can't happen, it won't happen. And the Institute of the Black World and Dr. Daniels and his brilliant team has actually assembled people who have the capabilities, who have the skills, and who have the history and longevity to actually create the change that we want to see.
We need all hands on deck for this, and not buying into, like you said, what the media's talking about. I mean, we're on the ground in Omaha, you know, about to be in Newark. Like, we're actually out here doing these things, and like it's good to see. And once again, like, to be a part of it and be in, we have an opportunity to really just change the entire dynamic of how things are.
And what I also love is that this is being talked about. You know, this was the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday sessions were closed door sessions just for those of us who are activists, business people, community leaders, and influencers. But as part of this, and then of course the mayor's staff was a part of it, but it's also, so it's kind of a top-down approach when you look at, okay, having business owners and city planners and all these people, it's kind of a top-down approach. But the beauty of a Marshall Plan is that it's also a bottom-up approach. So it's about galvanizing the masses of people to be a part of the change and influence the change and actually, you know, be integral, not just passive observers. So it's incredible.
And that's how you sustain it too. Because if you get more people involved in it that have interest in it, then you'll see more people that want it to succeed.
Every Black person in this country, in the area, is part of the force field that protects those who are forging plans forward. Yeah. So, you know, we're almost out of time for our regular show. We're going to continue because coming up, they had a musical selection, and then you're going to hear the keynote speech that Danny Glover gave. Just absolutely incredible. I was a little starstruck, like on a stage. Actually, you can see me on camera. I'm like videoing with my cell phone. It was a little surreal. It was also surreal to be in the audience, and where I was seated, he was literally right in front of me. And I was actually starstruck, not really because of his acting career, but because, you know, through his acting career and his success, he funnels all that back into getting involved politically, getting involved organizationally, and getting involved financially in community. So, you know, it's about the holistic approach. Yes.
Yeah, the quintessential actor.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very much starstruck, like, wow, I hope I can be like you when I grow up.
I would have been too. No shame.
So without that, we're going to sign off for the night, but you have the keynote speech by Mayor Baraka, a few more words by Dr. Ron Daniels, and of course, Danny Glover. So with that.
All right, we're blacking it out.
to this distinguished panelists, to my mayor, to none other than the president of the council, my dear sister that I love so very much. I see some of my other friends, and I say hi, and I say hi. Hi. To my sister Selena, I just love you so very much. I was asked to do this particular song, and it meant so much, and I was reading the words earlier this afternoon, and I said, gee, you know, I know when I first heard this from the musical Man La Mancha, but more than that, it tells a wonderful story in words. So I will say to you, my sisters and my brothers, let's listen to the words. Not so much how the voice may sound, but the beauty of the word. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will be peaceful and calm when I lay to my rest, and the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with this last ounce of courage to reach, to reach, to reach, to reach, to reach, to reach.
to give the pianist some, Pastor Jerry Williams. Playing it. Pastor Jerry Williams. And we thank, again, Reverend Louise Scott Roundtree, because I went to her, because, you know, we vibing now since the State of the Black World Conference. I said, we need 2 people to sing, so she said, I got it. Did she have it? Let's give it up again for these 2 dynamics. Let's give it up for that. Tremendous. And so now, brothers and sisters, yeah, there's a car, HCU 4655. New York plates, you better move, it will be moved. HCU 4655. Has to be moved. He said it. All right. Okay, now, is everybody all right? Yeah. Are we having a good time? Yeah. Are we celebrating Newark? Yeah. All right, that's what we're here for. And so now it's my distinct honor to introduce our keynote presenter. He really needs no introduction. He is recognized for his work throughout the globe. It is not by accident that he has been appointed to be the UN Ambassador for the Decade of African Descent. He's like a blur, constantly on the move, indefatigable. In fact, you know, we worry about him, but he just keeps moving because he's committed. Back from the days when he was a student at San Francisco State University helping to create the Black Studies movement, people like Sonia Sanchez. He's an actor of great significance. I was with somebody the other day and he said, oh, is that Danny Glover? I remember him. Yeah, that's Danny Glover. But acting does not define Danny Glover. That's not who Danny Glover is. Danny Glover has always been about serving his people. And so the other day I heard he was in Venezuela, dealing with the issue of African descendants there. A couple of weeks before that, I was trying to catch up with him, and he was in Honduras, Costa Rica, moving through those, Guatemala, moving through those countries. And so now he's back in the country. And he's coming into us now from Newark, where they asked for him. They needed him. They wanted him to be there because of what he represents. He will spend the night with us, and then early in the morning he's off to Washington, D.C. That's Danny Glover. That's Danny Glover. And he don't show up just for anybody. He shows up for those persons and policies that he believes in, that advance the vision of those things that he holds dear to his heart, and those things for which he has dedicated his life. And he is dedicated. He's one of the most remarkable human beings we have among us, a treasure for people of African descent. In the spirit of Paul Robeson, he doesn't like me to say that, but I just can't otherwise. It's been branded. He's in the spirit of Paul Robeson. Would you please welcome our keynote presenter, Danny Glover. UN Ambassador. Activist and humanitarian, Danny Glover.
To the Newark, New Jersey, the Honorable Mayor, Ras Baraka. Yes. And to those city officials who serve this city as it navigates its way through its own transformative process, I want to thank you, all those from Dr. Leonard Jeffries, to everyone here. I see so many people here. And I'm glad that, and I have the opportunity to be with you and to talk about, I think, so many things. There's never enough time to talk. You know what I'm saying? This young sister, this young brother up here has something to talk about, and we didn't have enough time for it, you know? Because this moment that we have here, this moment recognizing Dr. King's, his untimely death 50 years ago tomorrow. A moment where we find to gather our senses, to gather ourselves, to find ways in which we carry on that. Him being that symbol in that moment of what was just and what was to do, what we had to do, the work set out to do. We remember that he was organizing sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. Men who stood up and said, I am a man. We realized that he was doing that at that critical moment in the organizing of the strike itself, and the participation and the heroism of those men who stood up as well. We also realized that he was down in Alabama just a few days before, talking to sharecroppers in Alabama. He had moved across the country talking to sharecroppers, talking to poor people, black, white, Hispanic, Native Americans, Asian, in the service of organizing a poor people's march. Sometimes we have to put all the dots together to understand where we're translating this. We know that a year before, April 4th, 1967, he gave the speech that most people feel was his death sentencing beyond Vietnam. There he took his triplets of racism, militarism, and materialism, and said, this is robbing the moral spirit of this country. This capitalism, this system that had come into existence at the beginning of the 19th century, one based on plantation capitalism. That's what it is. We know that. Within 40 years, within the first 40 years of this country's existence, it became the most wealthiest country in the world from 1800 to 1840. The most wealthiest country in the world. Built on the blacks as slaves. Built on their backs. Created on their backs. So we look at this, all this an amazing information, and we look at ourselves right here in the age of, I don't say return of racism, but the blatant existence of it, the realization that it never did go away, the realization that we still had battle to fight, the realization that we have to determine where we stand on the issues of justice, where we stand on the issues that affect all of us, humanity itself, right here. We sit in here looking at not only black people, but humanity itself. And while King talked about that, he knew that his purpose and his mission was to save the soul of this country. I think about this moment in terms of the work that's here, the work that's being done, the intricate work. I would just say one of those young people who came to the Model Cities program in the Office of Community Development in 1971. With all of its great ideas, all the ideas of transforming, of empowering people, empowering communities in that. I came to that moment in San Francisco, California. Little did I know that there was another plan in place. And one of those plans, that plan had the approval, stamp of approval by black politicians or not, it was in place. It was called gentrification. It had been called redevelopment when I was in at the Western Addition Community Organization in 1966 as a 20-year-old young man just attending to find out what was happening to a traditionally black neighborhood, the Fillmore. The Fillmore that I lived in, the Fillmore that I grew up in. I just saw that change overnight. People were disempowered to the point now that the population of Black San Francisco, you can take the whole population of every black person in San Francisco, put them in Packdale Park, which sees 43,000 people, and you won't fill the park up. That's what has happened. They've been moved to the outskirts. So taking all this into consideration, the role that we play as citizens, the role that we play as elected officials, the role that we play in community building businesses is essential. Community businesses in the past wasn't Starbucks. Community business was businesses that were connected to what was happening in the community. If there was a strike in the community, they were involved in the strike. If there was some uprising in the community, they were involved. They weren't absent. They were absent from what was happening in those communities. So if we talk about this moment, in this moment where we saw the Great Recession and the impact that it had not only on black people, but specifically black women. Black women were the hardest hit by the housing fallout. We have to realize all these things as we move into developing our narrative. What is our narrative? What is the narrative that we're going to talk about? It's going to include the work that you're doing right here, but there's going to be an assemblage of other ideas as well that would nurture us in a different way. We don't know what those ideas are. We don't have any idea because imagination is extraordinary. Our imagination and our ability to transform, to make those things happen as individuals, collectively as citizens. When we do that, that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about a number of things here. We know what the Marshall Plan was. We know about the Marshall Plan, how it rebuilt Europe. The United States was the only economy left intact after World War II. So what it did was it created for the United States and U.S. plantation capitalism. This is what it created. It created the golden years of U.S. capitalism from 1945 to 1975. That's what the Marshall Plan was built on that. Not only are you rebuilding Europe, you are also rebuilding Japan as well and the rest of the world. So established a new set of wealth in this country. By the end of World War II, 75% of the wealth was owned by the United States. Right now, over 75% of the wealth is owned by corporations. That's the reality in that sense. It determines whether it wants to destabilize a small government or it determines whether it wants to destabilize a city. It does all of that. And when we think about those ideas, take in consideration the march that we have, the journey that we've been on. Like I said, I came with the Model Cities program. What did the Model Cities program do? It provided all those who were graduating from college, who were the baby boomers, an opportunity, a job. Not unlike in 1948 when my mother and father came to the post office. How many people in here, parents, cousins, daddy, mama, everybody worked at the post office? Almost everybody around the country. We had somebody who was connected to the post office. It provided this bridge for those who were assimilating, who had been victimized, and also who had been disenfranchised, an opportunity to get into the idea of the quote-unquote American dream or whatever. So those things happened. So it did that. It provided that space. King understood clearly in his speech on April 4th, 1967, he said clearly when he talked about the war in Vietnam, how he was eviscerating, and he used eviscerating the anti-poverty programs, the war on poverty, as he said. Those monies didn't go for that. They were going for killing Vietnamese. That money should be designated for what we needed to do, what needed to happen, what really needed to happen in this country in terms of doing justice and doing right by African Americans was now finding itself wasted upon war. We see the same thing happening today. Yep. In fact, he had gone to the budget of Office Affairs, and came up with a number in terms of how much it would take to do justice to African Americans, former slaves in that plantation, capitalism itself. So we understand that it could be done. We saw it done in Europe. Yeah. We saw what happened in Europe, where it raised the levels of health care, right. The Marshall Plan. Yeah. It rebuilt the whole circuit. In fact, you almost want to think that they bombed and devastated everything in order to so they could rebuild it. And use that as a platform in toward increasing their power and increasing their wealth. So what is that narrative that we need to talk about? How does that narrative involve committed elected officials? These men and women here, the mayor here, committed for real change. How do we find, not only that, how do we find an international bridge with other countries and other communities as well? How do we build those relationships with what's happening? You look at Brazil, you have the landless movement, MST. The landless movement in Brazil has placed significantly over 450,000 families on abandoned land. That's over 1.45 billion people that they place on place. How do we connect with them? Because there's a narrative there. It's a narrative for transformation as well. So as we talk about this, what is the narrative for transformation? You know, I was in Venezuela. As Venezuela was last week commemorating the 164th year since the abolition of slavery. Now you count that, that had to be in 1854. Right. When did the U.S. abolish slavery? 1863, January 1st, 1863. That's when they abolished it. The decree came out there, but we know what happened after that. And subsequently what happened with that. So on the one hand, I was in a community called Barlavento, primarily African descended communities. It grew its own cocoa. It took that cocoa and made chocolate with it, and it built a viable community there with relationships that went beyond just the making of chocolate itself, with relationships that were much larger than that. They had begun the process of transformation. King always talked about what is the road to transformation? Right. What is the pathway to transformation? Not simply that we have a job, not simply that we have been successful in what we do in terms of our business, but what is that transformation? What is that process for transformation? We need more and more to talk about that, to add that as leverage in what we do as work. So the work that we do now, in the legacy of King, of all those fallen, all those who have left us, all those who have given so much of their own time, sacrifice, and everything else. What does that transformation look like? And how do we create a world that works, a city that works for all of us, not only a city that works for all of us, but a state that works for all of us, and et cetera, et cetera. That is our task. We have to find that narrative. And it's a dynamic narrative. The contradictions have changed, whether they are. Even though we see the manifestation of Trump and we pay a lot of attention to what he's tweaking and everything else, the real transformation went long before Trump came into power. What was happening, what were the changes that were happening? The reinstitution of racism, the breakdown of the society itself, the breakdown of all those things that the New Deal brought. The New Deal brought all these particular things, put them into place, and every moment since then, it's been an attempt to undermine it. The voting rights side, all those things that dissuade us to be real citizens and active citizens in our own rescue. Active citizens in our own rescue. So that narrative has to include that as well. So these are moments that we have to take serious, to think out, find ways to collaborate with all aspects of hear, listen, grow, and build. Thank you so much.
Danny Glover. Danny Glover.
Boy, it's getting gooder and gooder. Wow, you know what I mean? I want to acknowledge delegation from the United African Congress, led by the national spokesperson for that organization, has come over from New York as a part of the Pan-African Unity Dialogue that we convened, the Honorable Sadiq Y, and the representatives of the United African Congress. So now we want to have our panel discussion. I need a watch. My watch stopped, so somebody gotta provide me with a watch so I know what our timing is. Because we don't want to hold you too long, but we do want to hear from these brilliant folks who have assembled in terms of having a conversation. And it will be a conversation. We're going to ask them to respond to particular questions. And, you know, if they get the Holy Ghost like Ron Busby did, I'll go. You know what I mean? That means, you know what that represents, right? And again, among the things that we're attempting to do is to talk about Newark. But beyond Newark is how do we replicate a process that can transform not only Black America, but at the heart of it is Black America, but also transform this nation. And we have that capacity, and that's what we're talking about. And so I want to begin with our two Newark residents, and with all the pop people stand up in the house, you got the chairman here. Y'all pop people's organization. Y'all be showing out. Pop people, popping up. So we ask you to be crisp in your responses, and I wanted to start with you, Larry Ann, and then subsequently with Pastor Ronald Slaughter, whom I had the privilege of meeting today. I heard so much about him in terms of the work that he's doing. So I want you to share with our visiting resource people who are here your perspective on the progress that's being made here in Newark, but also the challenges, you know, in terms of what the challenges are in terms of the effort to make Newark a model city under the leadership of the Honorable Ras Baraka. So again, my question is, you know, to share, you know, because they want to hear from you. You're our local panelists. What are, again, some of your perspectives on the progress that's being made, but also the challenges? Because it's never easy. It's never like without some contradiction. So, I need the microphones. Where are the microphones at? The microphones up here? Let's get the mics up. Okay, now we're going to get them to you. I'm sorry, I had to, didn't want y'all to get started too soon, so. You got a preacher and Larry Ham's a preacher too. All right, y'all wanna test yours? Oh, you're good to go. So, Larry Ham, start us off.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
The Institute for the Black World, 21st Century. Give them a big hand on having this economic forum. And I must say, in the interest of full disclosure, because I don't want anybody to be under any illusions as to where I stand, I just want to say that the People's Organization for Progress, we endorse the candidacy of Ras Baraka in 2014, and the People's Organization for Progress endorses the candidacy of Ras Baraka and his entire team in 2018. We stand forever in the vortex of history, and as our beautiful singer was rendering the impossible dream, I can remember being in West Kenny Junior High School in the fall of 1971 when we were preparing for the National Black Political Convention. And we had the Essex County Black Political Convention at West Kenny Junior High School. And Congressman Fauntleroy from Washington, D.C. was the guest speaker. And that night he sang, "Dream the Impossible Dream." And here we are today, and now the son of the man that convened the National Black Political Convention is the mayor of the city of Newark.
So now you have 3 minutes to answer the question.
That was my 3 minutes, right? Let me just say quickly on the question of economic development, that we're having this forum today is fortuitous because yesterday was the anniversary, in fact, the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Economic Cooperation Act by Congress in 1948, which created the Marshall Plan. So it's right, it's been 70 years since 1948 when the Marshall Plan was created.
It's actually the night.
April 2nd is when Congress passed it.
Okay.
Congress passed the Economic Cooperation Act, April 2nd, 1948. But the point I'm trying to make is this, that the Marshall Plan enabled the rebuilding, and not just the rebuilding, the revitalization of Europe after the devastation of World War II. They had a Marshall Plan in 1948. We need an urban Marshall Plan for our cities in 2018. And what that means, and I fully support all self-help efforts, but we have to be clear on what the Marshall Plan was. The Marshall Plan was the investment of billions of dollars of public funds into the economic development of Europe. And we need, instead of spending $1 trillion on wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, we need to use that trillion for an urban Marshall Plan for our cities and to revitalize Newark, New Jersey. So I think that the administration of Ras Baraka has put us on the right path. But it's going to be a difficult path because the development of a city takes place within the parameters of the American capitalist system. And that system is designed, in fact, to impede our growth and development. And that we need a radical transformation of our socio-economic system. We needed that in 1968, and we need it in 2018 because black people are in worse shape in this country in 2018 than we were when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968.
All right. So Reverend Slaughter, you pastor a congregation. So you have folk in the congregation who, you know, they're not necessarily interested in all the lofty speeches and all that. They want to know what, you know, Mr. Saying Nothing, Mr. Do is everything. So they want to know what's happening, what's going on. So, and you were yourself involved in doing some economic enterprises yourself. So from where you sit, how do you see Newark's development plan unfolding, and what do you see as some of the challenges?
Well, first, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this panel. It's kind of hard following Uncle Larry Ham, but I do the best that I can. As it was said earlier, I was so happy to hear Brother Glover talk more about King's speech in Memphis than his speech in Washington. Because most of us have begun to sanitize the life of Dr. King and relegate it to nothing more than I have a dream speech. But he was much more than just that. In fact, when he talked about the need for housing and the economic epidemic in this country while he was in Chicago, and the need for blacks to have affordable housing and places to live and also places to work in order to be on a level playing field. From a faith perspective, from a spiritual perspective, I believe you need faith and spirituality in order to bring about change in the community and transformation. And so along with partnering with our mayor and partnering with the city, we don't need more church buildings, we need more transformative centers. And that's what, if you listen carefully to what Stephon Clark's auntie was saying the other day on national television, and she was referring to her nephew who everybody's criticizing because Stephon Clark's brother's running around and people have all types of things to say about him. And what she said is, we need resource centers to get persons the help that they need in our urban and inner cities. And so I believe under our mayor's agenda, our mayor understands that we can build downtown, that's good, but he also believes that we must revitalize the urban communities and the blightedness in those communities. And so I have proudly partnered with our mayor to bring about that type of change in the inner city. And then finally, most of us have heard about Nehemiah. We've read something about Nehemiah. I just so happened to finish a complete dissertation on Nehemiah and the work of reviving the urban blighted areas of our community. I'm glad I'm graduating. I'm done with that doctoral piece next month. But in researching all of that and going through that, Nehemiah was more than just a spiritual personality. Nehemiah was a revitalizer. And when we only relegate him to being spiritual, we minimize his impact. In fact, the scholar Walter Brueggemann once said of Nehemiah, he's the greatest urban redeveloper that the world has ever seen. That implies Jerusalem was urban at the time that Nehemiah undertook that assignment. And because I preach everything from a black perspective, then Nehemiah's skin must have been darkened by Mother Nature's son, which means he was a brother that said to the government of Jerusalem, you all contributed to this blightedness, you all need to help fund this blightedness, you need to help fund the turnaround in the city. So I believe the resources we talked about earlier in our sessions, that we must hold the government accountable. We talk about reparations, nobody have no problem with that. They have billions of dollars and we need to make sure it is allocated to our inner cities, that we turn our inner cities around and we follow the vision that our mayor has set before us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'd now like to turn to a friend who has come from the city of Philadelphia, Dr. H. Ahada Stanford. She's the Director of Neighborhood and Commercial Revitalization in Philadelphia. And I'd just like you, from your own experience, to share with our brothers and sisters here on the panel, but also brothers and sisters here from Newark, of what lessons they might learn from the work that you're doing, you know, in Philadelphia. What lessons can you share that might be useful? Or maybe it's some of the difficulties, but whatever in your own voice, please share that with us.
Well, this is a field trip for me. I'm learning.
Speak a little louder, you're so soft spoken.
This is a field trip for me. This is really a field trip. I absolutely am learning. And in fact, I've just been sitting here trying to absorb it all. It's just so absolutely wonderful. Maybe the last time I was here was with Tongolese and the Congress of African People folks and V.bRoberts and talking about social organization and we talked about cities, you know, but one of the things that gets lost in cities is where we live, our communities, our neighborhoods. That's where our assets are. That's where we grow the wealth of our families. And that's really very important. And so revitalizing downtown has gotten to be the thing. And it's happening. It's happening all over the country. But revitalizing neighborhoods is something that we have to make happen. That's right. And it will only happen when we make it happen. When we decide that it's important to own those assets that are in our neighborhoods. When it's important to shop in our neighborhoods. It's important to grow businesses in our neighborhoods. And that's the kind of thing that I've been doing, and that's the kind of thing that my team does in Philadelphia. We go into commercial quarters, and there are CDCs there working, doing housing, but we work in the commercial quarters, supporting the businesses, working with CDCs, planning, analyzing the real estate, doing development. And we'd love to see that happen here in Newark. And I know it's happening, but I think that we could probably share some lessons with you. And so I'm going to keep trying to learn what I'm learning so that I can share some lessons with people here in Newark.
Okay. Willie, Barney, you have traveled all the way from Omaha, Nebraska. I didn't even know there was black people in Omaha. Actually, that's where El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz was born. And I had the privilege in 1990 of being a part of what we call 1990, the year of Malcolm X, and we went to Newark for that purpose. Let me just say that Willie Barney, in my estimation, has put together in the city of Omaha one of the most phenomenal organizing economic and community development projects anywhere that I know. And I specialize in trying to find these things. So Willie, would you just share your sense of what you're doing in Omaha and how it could be potentially helpful in terms of what's happening here in Newark?
I just first want to say that this is our time. It's not by accident that we're here at this time in this city. This is our time. And I say that because I am a full support of the Marshall Plan and the model city here in Newark. Because we rebuilt Europe, we rebuilt Japan, we're rebuilding Iraq. We might as well rebuild right here. And what's interesting is, I'll talk quickly about Omaha, but I'm so impressed by what I saw with the mayor and his administration, the state of the city. And they know what to do. They need the resources to take it to scale and to accelerate the pace of the work that they're already doing. And so, as much as we need a Marshall Plan, we also need a Montgomery Plan. And what I mean by that is in Montgomery, the people engaged, they were educated, they empowered themselves, and then they pursued excellence in an economic sense. And so what we've been pursuing for the last 12 years in Omaha is bringing together people from different sectors, starting with us, engaging in the society, and then educating ourselves on where are the existing funds? Where are the dollars? How are they used at the city, state, county level, federal level? How do we reallocate strategically to make sure that we're using those resources in our own community first? That's where we started. And then we identified that we needed to have elected officials in place that supported that bigger community bottom-up vision. And that's what we have now, 3 school board members. We have the city council president. We have the county commissioner. We have the Douglas County treasurer. We have 2 state senators that are aligned to a community-based plan which is being redeveloping in our own community. And so I'm here in support of the larger vision of a nationwide effort around the Marshall Plan. I'm in support of this mayor and the administration of the work that they're doing here. And I just want to, the reason I say it's our time, it's not by accident that 50 years ago the Kerner report came back and said you have to invest at the scale of the problem. It's 50 years since Dr. King was taken from us. And now here we find ourselves in this very moment. And I'll share with you very quickly, in Omaha, using some of the very same plans that the mayor's administration has laid out, our graduation rate has gone from 50% to 81% to African Americans. Our gun violence rate in the summer, when our kids have jobs, and positive activities, and they're working with the churches, our gun violence rate is down 80% in the summer months when the kids are working. Graduation rates are up, gun violence is down, and we are now beginning to really marshal and align resources, collaboration, alignment, and strategic reinvestment. This is our time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Charlene Sinclair, you're a native of Newark and doing incredible work, you know, around the country, but you and the Center for Community Change are focusing on this question and how we need to move. So share with us your sense of what work you're doing and how it might in fact be helpful and instructive to what is happening here in Newark.
So good evening. I am a native of Newark. It's wonderful to be home and to see this kind of energy and excitement. And I've been trying to figure out how to get back to Newark for decades. So this feels so good. So thank y'all for having me. But I'm a community organizer. That's what I do for a living. And that means that we get all into the business of what is disrupting the thriving of our people. And part of the work that we are doing around this country, and why I got into community organizing is as a native of Newark. I left Newark at 17, pregnant, trying to raise a kid. And somebody knocked on my door and said, why are you living in this roach-infested, rat-infested tenement? And that's how I got into this work. Transforming the place I lived in, and that led to me understanding that I needed to transform the city, the state, the country, and eventually the world. So part of what we need to be doing is to recognize that the local is also the national, is also the international. And so a lot of the work that our groups are doing is working deeply in communities with residents, actually building up projects and building of work on the basis of what those communities have determined that their needs are. So from the places in Missouri where Seth is coming from, where they're looking at social determinants of health and actually building a narrative that the work that we're doing is not only about making life a little easier, but actually showing that the deep generational poverty that we're living in is actually resulting in the death of community members at 10 to 15 years than that of people in other zip codes. That's what we're dealing with. This is not just a narrative or rhetoric. This is the reality of the fact that our people are dying as a result of this. So people are organizing around the country to actually take back infrastructure. In Detroit, they're actually working to make sure that the water infrastructure isn't bankrupted and taken and privatized so that they can own the actual system, the water system, the $1.3 trillion asset in that community can stay in that community. So in Ohio, they're working on a crime ballot initiative that will actually reduce felonies, not only because they're interested in criminal justice and keeping people out of prison, but a recognition that if you have a felony, you cannot get a job. If you are pouring money into the carceral system, you don't have money for schools. You don't have money for any kind of mental health, anything. So that's why they're doing that work. People are actually moving, and we're coalescing around an umbrella of Black safety, liberation, Black thriving, Black freedom. And so that's the work that we are moving forward. Now the challenges that we're faced, and I'm going to use 2 examples for challenges and then I'll be quiet. The first example, because I'm sitting between 2 men of the cloth, is what I tell myself, the place that I go to is actually the book of Revelations. Book of Revelations, chapter 18, verses 11 through 13. People talk about verse 11 because they're talking about all these luxury goods, all that we create just to sustain the materialism of the country, the materialism of the imperialist movement. And then it says, and we also sell body and souls, and then people get upset, body and souls, but they never go to the next line, where the people that are crying are the merchants. The people that are actually getting their livelihood on this system. And so we need to be careful that when we're actually moving to make life better, we're not reinscribing, making, deepening, creating the very same systems that need our death in the first place. So we have to be careful. The second quick example is because this is Martin Luther King, where we're celebrating, you know, his vision, and we're talking about his martyrdom towards that vision, remembering in that spirit also that in the last retreat with SCLC, when he talked about the Poor People's Campaign, when he talked about economic redistribution, the people around him said, wait a minute. So while we're in this room, the question is, who will you be? Will you be the people that cry because your livelihood is now threatened because we need to upturn this entire system? Or will you be the people that stand with King and say that we have to do the work, even to the point maybe of death for justice, not just death to support capitalism?
Randall Pinkett, you from these environs from Newark, and you've been very successful, and you're very committed and social entrepreneur associated with FraserNet, vice president of FraserNet. Share your thoughts about, as you travel the world and what you're doing, how we can be of assistance to the city of Newark.
So there's a lot of income in our communities, but there's not a lot of wealth in our communities. I'm going to say it again, somebody said that's true. There's a lot of income in our communities. There's not a lot of wealth in our communities. And I believe that if we're going to design a Marshall Plan for the city of Newark, that Marshall Plan has got to focus not on just creating greater income, but creating greater wealth in our communities, in a way. I've been a business owner, believe it or not, for about 25 years. I've been a business owner in Newark for the past 14 years. I moved my business from Plainfield, New Jersey to Newark in 2004 because we wanted to be a part of the economic transformation that was happening in Newark and has continued. And I got to give credit to our mayor, Ras Baraka, who has really made moves in terms of a vision for how we can really economically empower the city of Newark. So shout out to Ras Baraka for his work and vision. But to quickly tie together a few things that have been said by Brother Glover and by others, and Brother Ham and Ron touched on this, and Nataki touched on this. So in Dr. King's last book before he died, Where Do We Go From Here? The book that he wrote just before, that was released just before his assassination. At the end of the book, he says the following, and Brother Ham made reference to it. I got the exact excerpt. He said the following at the end of the book. And be mindful that in the last numbers I checked, there were about 45 million poor people in America. So keep that into context. Dr. King's writing. I want to say to you, as I move to my conclusion, as we talk about where do we go from here, that we must honestly face the fact that the movement must address itself to the question of restructuring the whole of American society. There are 40 million people, poor people here, and one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you are raising a question about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you must begin to question the capitalistic economy, the words of Dr. King. If you round up every single millionaire in America and ask them, how did you make your millions? From the lottery, from inheritance, from savings, from stocks, from bonds, 7 out of 10 will tell you they made their millions by owning a business. By owning a business. So the only way we restructure this society, the only way we transform Newark is by creating more successful business owners. And that's 2 ways. The first is teaching our young people that you don't just have to go get a job, you can own something in this city. I'm a first-generation entrepreneur. I started at the age of 18, that's why I've been in business 25 years. I started in college at Rutgers. I have no one in my family, shout out to Rutgers, who had ever launched a business, but I had a friend who was 21 who launched the company. I said, if he can do it, why can't I do it? The second thing is, for those of us that are in business, show of hands, how many entrepreneurs here, past, present, or future, in the room? All right. I see you proud, brother. I'm not mad at you. The second thing I do is, we have to support existing business owners to accelerate their growth because, I'm going to close on this, 98% of all companies are small companies. 75% of jobs are created by small companies. Black-owned businesses have the highest likelihood of employing black people. So if we want to create wealth, we want to create jobs, we want to transform Newark, we need not just entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs who do not forget where they come from. And when they make that money and build that wealth, they reinvest the money back into the community. That's what we do.
All right. Okay.
And I'm looking to launch, that's what I said. I'm looking to launch, and we've been talking about this. This is my commitment to Newark. We're looking to launch a Black Business Accelerator program that brings together the anchor institutions, Prudential, PSE&G, Verizon, all the big anchors, Rutgers, NJIT, and translates their spending to more local spending with local businesses to build the local economy, to create local jobs and local opportunities. That's what we're working on right now. So that's my contribution to the Marshall Plan.
All right. That's like concrete. All right. Okay, let me just say this. Growing those businesses, you heard Nataki Kambon, right? I'm connecting the dots. She says she is about taking mom and pop, and I'm not saying that disparagingly, small businesses that have 100,000, she's saying she's willing to be here in Newark to help scale them up to $1 million, multi-million dollar. That's what her commitment was. Nataki Kambon. Next I want to go to Mike Roberts. Michael Roberts is, I've already described, he's phenomenal. He is, maybe I already told this story, but he's the kind of person who owns radio stations, a bunch of other things, but as I think I may have said this earlier, I'll repeat it. When Chokwe Lumumba, the father of Chokwe, Anta Lumumba, was running for mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, he essentially quietly said, you got my radio station. Do what you got to do. And that's an in-kind contributions, that's like a lot. But that's his consciousness. He's been willing to do that. He's been willing to work with people to help build businesses all across this country. So Michael Roberts, would you be Dr. Michael?
All right.
Thank you very much. All right. We're just about done, and we want to hear from our mayor. I want to make a quick commercial announcement, but it's not so commercial, but many of you received in your packets a brochure. You said, what is this about? Well, it's about a unique offer from George Frazier, who's been supporting this, and George Frazier is an amazing brother. And there are 4 people who are here who are part of the Power Networking Conference. Willie Barney, Nataki Kambon, Michael Roberts, and Randall Pinkett. What they do at the Power Networking Conference is, Sister Frederica, did you go last year? She was at it last year, and she did it because we made the same offer and you took advantage of it, right? But it's a tonight-only offer of $2,100 worth of coaching, of counseling, of mentoring around business and economic and entrepreneurial development, which George Fraser is offering to this audience for $399. $399, okay? And so we're going to have these brochures. Got a little table up here afterwards. I'll make the announcement one more time, but you have to sign up tonight, in order to get that offer. That's from George Fraser, one of the baddest brothers on the planet. Now, just before we hear from our mayor, I want to bring to the rostrum one of our great local prophets and visionaries. He has been going back and forth to Africa, but he's very much in tune with this issue of economic development. And I did not want to have this meeting without allowing him to offer a brief charge in terms of what he's heard and to lay out his sense of why it is what we're doing is so incredibly important. And so before we hear our mayor, so therefore we need to be brief, we want to hear from the Reverend Dennis Dillon. Oh, well, but I don't want, now he can't speak behind the mayor. That's right. The mayor has to have the last word. No, I didn't know he was moving. But let me just reinforce this announcement here and this, but I didn't know he was leaving. So actually, we may forfeit that because you have to be ready when called, you understand? So would you now please welcome to the rostrum our beloved brother, the visionary. He's fatigued, I see him tired, but he ain't no way tired. Too young to be tired. The Honorable Ras Baraka.
Let's give it up, please, for Dr. Ron Daniels, please. His tireless commitment to making this stuff happen is unbelievable. He gets this done over and over and over again, and you know, we are forever grateful for him. And I'm just excited about this entire panel up here as well. It kind of reiterated some of the things that I yell and scream and fuss about all day to the folks who work in City Hall with me all the time. They got to hear other people say the same things that I say, and so I was elated to hear you guys, even, you know, the Freedom Paper Company. It's folks that we trying to work with now, like the fire on the people to make them understand how important these things are. We said an urban Marshall Plan, and in my head, you know, some of this stuff sounds contradictory to people, but you know, all contradictions are not antagonistic. You know, there's something called the unity of opposites, right? How would you know that you was male if there was no female? If there was no down, it could not be up. If there was no right, it could not be left. So opposites unify. It actually creates balance, and that's important for us to understand. So there's only two things that we need to do as a mayor of the city. There's only two things that I do every day that I try to do. There's only two things that I say over and over again when I go around at this point now. And I said it earlier today. To a smaller room, and the first thing is to create a city of brilliant, beautiful, courageous, you know, folks that are willing to challenge and transform a system in order to make it represent everybody, right? And two is to keep them alive long enough to do that. And that's important. It's important because it deals with two things that we've been talking about. So we're trying to challenge a system that is designed to keep us in poverty. And so where we live, poverty is an integral part, is an ingredient for a system that we're in. Poverty is an ingredient. So I want us to understand exploitation is an ingredient in a system that we use to function every day. Racism and white supremacy has become an ingredient in that system. So meaning that you can't have that system unless these ingredients exist. In fact, when you pull those ingredients out, the system changes to something else, right? And so we have to have people that are smart enough to A, understand that, and B, work every day to transform that into something that's different that exists already, right? And then the second and most important piece as a mayor, so I got the regular job of, you know, fussing with people about snow, about potholes, about garbage, which every mayor has to deal with, but I also got to stop people from dying. Right? From things from, you know, violence, self-inflicted, violence from police, violence from poverty, violence from infant mortality, violence from mental illness, violence from poor education, violence from poor diet and poor health, violence for poison in the air, poison in the food, poison in the water, violence from all those things. So I have to mitigate those things because we live in a system that has created that.
Come on.
Right? And so we're trying, and those things seem dialectical, but they're important. So on the one side, you have to create opportunity for people in this system to keep them alive. Because if you don't, they will die. Right? And because there was no democracy, nobody voted for poverty or who gets to be in poverty, it's privileged to say poverty needs to exist and we have to wait until somebody figure out how to get rid of it. And in the meantime, what are the people that are in poverty going to do, since you're not one of them? Right? So we have to figure out how to pull as many people out of that as we possibly can. That means we do have to create jobs. It means we do have to create wealth. It means we do have to change the material conditions of people's lives immediately, like tomorrow. We have to do that. And then second, we have to understand that that also has to be tied to a huge transformation of the entire system where we get rid of poverty altogether, right? And so that's why Urban Marshall Plan is important, right? It's important because we can't fix these problems off our goodwill and good looks, right? We actually have to infuse resources in our community, and we need public dollars and public commitment to make that happen. And that's democracy and self-determination. Democracy because part of the taxes are ours, right? So we're talking about commodities and exchange. It was a time when we were the property, when you were the wealth. We want wealth, but you were the wealth at one point. Your body was the wealth. So we have graduated from that part, at least to say we need some more wealth. And so we need an infusion in our community. And it was said earlier today, the Marshall Plan was not just about creating jobs and wealth in the community. It was also a political document that was about making sure they create and sustain institutions of Western democracy and capitalism throughout the world, right? So that's also was a part of what the Marshall Plan was about. So we have to have an urban Marshall Plan that's designed to uplift the people in these communities, train them, give them employment, build wealth, allow them to have entrepreneurship if necessary, spend their money where they want to spend it, all these kind of self-determining things, give their kids better schools, training, knowledge of self, all the things that we need to survive in our community long enough. And then we need to have at the base of that the kind of undercurrent that says that we're doing this because we want to transform this. It's purposely disinvested in our neighborhood. The state is willing to give $5 billion and we'll create tax credits and money. We're willing to create that and give it to the private sector to invest in our community. And that's a contradiction, but it's something that we'll take for the present. But we have to think about how do we force them to turn around and give a similar $5 billion package to a community to publicly. How do we, and see, the fight with that is, you know, if you ask the state to do that, the people around the state would come and uprise against you because they're not willing to invest $5 billion of their money into your communities of poor working people of color. They're not willing to do that. So that's going to take a struggle. We can't even get them to spend funding for schools equally. Right? So if we say we need $5 billion of tax credits, of public money invested in Newark, Irvington, East Orange, Trenton, Camden, if we need that tomorrow, we'd actually probably have to have a fight. A real one. A real one. In order to get that to happen. That's the contradiction that we have to understand. And I'm going to get out of here, but the Urban Marshall Plan is something that we all should be saying. And that's why I love Dr. Daniels, because he understands that all of us on every sector of our society, you know, need to be saying we need an urban Marshall Plan. Every talk show, every radio show, we need to call it whatever we want to call it, but we need to be saying, you know, arguing on our entities, we need an urban Marshall Plan. Not arguing with each other about, you know, there's garbage on my block. We need to be arguing about how do we create an urban Marshall Plan, right? How do we create a system that's designed to compensate us for 250 years of free labor, disenfranchisement, lynching, abuse, destruction of our family, systematized undermining of our economy in our cities, the murder of our children, the poisoning of our water, housing that is poor, dilapidated, and destroyed, homelessness on our street, poison in our community, bad education in schools that are crumbling at their foundation, guns that have been put in our community, drugs that have been infiltrated in our neighborhoods, cities all over America that have been destroyed purposefully, deliberately, and systematically. While we blame one another for the outcomes of that, we don't blame the people who created the sickness in the first place. Yeah. So I say to people, you know, this system is like a musical chairs. And we're running around trying to get chairs. And the problem with musical chairs is that it ain't never been enough chairs, right? And so they got you believing that you have to listen to a specific song, or maybe you should run faster, or do some push-ups or exercise so you can run faster and get in a chair before this person. But the real trick is it ain't enough chairs. And so while we fight with each other about how to get these chairs and who's responsible for the chair and why you didn't put the chair here versus the chair there, and while we at the council meetings beating each other up about what the chairs look like, how big the chairs is, how small the chairs are, how wide the chairs are, nobody has ever said, hey, wait a minute, there's not enough chairs. And we don't want to play this game anymore because the game is intrinsically flawed. We want a game where there's enough chairs for everybody, right? And if we had a game where everybody had a chair, then we all could sit down without killing and beating on one another, right? Never mind if the chair is dirty or clean or red or blue or black or tall or short, then we just want enough chairs. That's it. And that's what the Urban Marshall Plan is designed to do, provide an opportunity for us to create enough chairs. And I think our young people are smart enough, because I'm not at this point in my life, to figure out how to dismantle, transform, and create a system that's equitable. So my job is not to create a new game. I'm the mayor of the city. I'm not here to create a new game. I'm here to prepare young people so they can create a new game. And I got to provide them cover fire so nobody don't kill them before they come up with the idea to create the new game. That's all my job is. And if I get to do that, I will die a happy man. That some of these beautiful young people create an opportunity of a game that we all can play with. Nobody gets put out, and I keep them alive long enough. I'm the sniper on the roof with the long-barreled gun that'll get shooting everybody. I'm the Tuskegee Airman that's protecting the bombers as they fly in to bomb the whole thing. I'm keeping you alive long enough to fulfill your mission. God bless you.
Ras Baraka.
All right. So I want everybody to hold still. We're going to close in order, and we're going to close quickly. I just want to once again say that we do have this incredible offer where a lot of people can get the training and the skills that you need in order to prepare yourself to be entrepreneurs. $2,100 worth of good stuff for $3.99. There will be a table right here. I'm going to ask Michael Roberts, Willie Barney, Randall Pickett, and Nataki Kambon to be there to greet you, because they will all be at the Power Networking Conference. Now I'm going to ask Reverend Dennis Dillon to come and give the benediction. Tomorrow at April 4th, People's Organization for Progress, of course, Still Fighting for the Dream March and Rally commemorating the 50th anniversary of the martyrdom of Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's going to be at the corner of 430 corner of 13th Avenue, Martin Luther King Boulevard, next to the Hall of Records, 465 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard in Newark. So that's popping, and of course we're going to move that project forward. Okay, everybody will be there for that. Okay, so we're going to have Reverend Dillon, unfortunately, you know, whatever, but benediction, and then we're going to do Harambe together, all right? We're going to do Harambe together. So, all right, stand at 7 Harambes, y'all know that, right? 7 Harambe means let us all pull together. I won't like stress you out because I can hold my breath longer, but we just want to do these 7 Harambes strong from Newark. Newark is a model city. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Harambe! 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 Harambe!